We're talking NFL Week 9 on today's Safe Bet.
The Safe Bet Podcast with longtime veteran sports reporter James Walker and host Jason Caffarelli.
All right, let's welcome in ESPN alumnus James Walker and our NFL insider on the line. And James, let's jump right into it. We'll recap Week 8 as we look at rankings and lines for Week 9. Let's jump right into it. James, with the Patriots.
Yeah, Jason, the Patriots, I don't think people are giving Bill Belichick enough credit for the job that he's doing this year. This may be one of his best coaching jobs that he's had in New England. He's had a lot. Look, they're a team that's won 6 Super Bowls. They've won the AFC East division countless times. They've been to the Super Bowl so many times. But if you look at their roster, where's their all-star level talent other than, Tom Brady? Yes, they have a decent running back in Sonny Michel. Yes, they have Julian Edelman, who's not an elite receiver, but a pretty good receiver. But, this isn't the Randy Moss, Rob Gronkowski, Richard Seymour, Ty Law, New England Patriots. I mean, this is a Patriots team that's really just playing well because of their great coaching. And really, they've just been 2-3 steps ahead of everybody else. So they're 8-0. They have more wins than anybody right now. The San Francisco 49ers are 7-0. So they're one of 2 undefeated teams, and they're just winning games and chugging along. So they beat the Cleveland Browns by 14 points. They got up 17-0 and kind of, cruised from there. But their defense is playing lights out. A lot of that's due to Bill Belichick. And, what more can you say? I mean, they're a team that's only going to get better throughout the year. I really am having a hard time seeing where the 3 losses are going to come from, but I'm keeping them right now at 13-3, even though they're already 8-0.
And the Patriots have a tough matchup this weekend. They have the Sunday night game where they face the Ravens in Baltimore. The Patriots are 3.5-point favorites there. Let's move into your number 2 and the 49ers.
Yeah, and I thought about moving the 49ers up to number 2 last week, but I kind of held out. And after blowing out the Panthers, putting up 51 points on them, 51-13, I said, okay, it's time to move them up as the number 2 team. As I mentioned earlier, they're one of 2 undefeated teams left in the league, along with the New England Patriots. Now they're just blowing teams out, and their defense is just wreaking havoc. I mean, they may have the best defense, in the league. So they're leading with their defense. They're not making a lot of mistakes on offense. Jimmy Garoppolo only threw for 175 yards, but that's all they needed, to score 51 points because their defense is giving them such great field position and just causing turnovers that they just made Kyle Allen, the rookie quarterback for the Panthers, just look bad. Really the first team to make them look bad. So credit goes to the 49ers. They're for real. They got a Thursday night game, so let's see how they react in a short week.
49ers play on Thursday night against the Cardinals in Arizona. The Niners are 10-point favorites on the road. Let's move into number 3 in the New Orleans Saints.
Drew Brees is back, and this is a Saints team that went 5-0 without Drew Brees. And then, Drew Brees came back and they blew out the Arizona Cardinals 31-9. They're 7-1. They're a team to be reckoned with. I had them in my top 7 before, Drew Brees came back, and now he's back. They're one of the elite teams, in the league. There's just no doubt about it. So he threw 3 touchdowns in his return. The defense played lights out. Teddy Bridgewater's now on the bench. The crowd did give him a standing ovation, which is deserved after leading the Saints to a 5-0 record to get them in position. But now the keys go back to Brees. It's his team. And with that said, I'm going to adjust their win total as well. Now that they're back at full strength, and move the Saints win total in our model up to 12 wins this season.
The Saints are on a bye this week. Let's move into your number 4 team and the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, the Packers have been a team that I've been on that train all season, and they're 7-1 as well. Struggled a little bit in Kansas City, and Kansas City was playing without their MVP, Patrick Mahomes. With Matt Moore as a backup quarterback, but, they still won the game 31-24, never apologized for winning. But again, look, they had to play in Arrowhead Stadium, a tough place to play, no matter who's the quarterback, and the Packers went up and scored 31 points on them. Aaron Rodgers was just phenomenal. It looks like he's getting his mojo back after a slow start to the season. He did have 3 touchdown passes, including an incredible pass, basically from his knees to the back of the end zone, which was arguably one of the better TD throws of this season. So if Aaron Rodgers is rolling, the Packers are a dangerous team. They've been kind of led by their defense in the first month of the season, but it looks like in the last 3 or 4 weeks, Aaron Rodgers has kind of led the team So we'll see which way they go in the second half of the season. But, I have no doubts that they're going to be a playoff team and really a force in the NFC. So I'm going to adjust their win total as well and our model to 12 victories.
The Packers are 3-point favorites on the road at the Chargers. Let's move into your number 5 and the Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah, Seattle just keeps on winning. And they picked up another win this week with Russell Wilson. They've actually found a new receiver threat in DJ Metcalf. The rookie had 2 touchdown passes from Russell Wilson. So him paired with Tyler Lockett, they're kind of a yin and yang because DJ Metcalf is this big physical freak kind of receiver, while Tyler Lockett's kind of this small, quick, shifty receiver. So between those two, Russell Wilson kind of has, different ways to go, different ways to attack the defense. So they beat the Atlanta Falcons, nothing to really write home about, 27-20. But, the Falcons are struggling. They're a 1-17. They're awful, both at home and on the road. But Seattle is 4-0 on the road, which I think is kind of a mark of a good team. If you can pick up that many road wins, especially early in the year, that kind of shows gumption, for them that, they'll be able to go wherever they need to go in the playoffs. And considering there's some teams in the NFC like the Packers, like the 49ers that have a better record than Seattle and may have a better record come playoff time, Seattle may have to go on the road to win if they're going to get to the Super Bowl. So the fact they're showing this kind of level of, prowess on the road early really bodes well for them.
The Seahawks are 6-point favorites at home versus Tampa Bay. Let's move into number 6 and the Vikings.
Yeah, Minnesota picked up a win over the Washington Redskins, 19-9. They didn't necessarily play their best game, but Thursday night is just one of those, tough circumstances where you just don't really know which team is going to show up, how teams are going to show up with little practice time. So the important things, they picked up the win. They improved to 4-0 at home with the win over the Washington Redskins. They didn't cover the spread necessarily, so it's bad for spread bettors, but they're 6-2 in a tough NFC North division. Kirk Cousins had another good game, 285 yards. Passing didn't make many mistakes. Dalvin Cook at running back almost had 100 yards rushing and a touchdown. He had 98 rushing yards. So they did what they had to do. Again, nothing spectacular, but now they have 10 days to prepare for their next game.
The Vikings play the Chiefs this week. That game is currently off the board. Let's move it to number 7 and the LA Rams.
Yeah, the Rams had a neutral site game and picked up a win over the Cincinnati Bengals, 24-10. They seem to be coming around a little bit. They're now at 5-3. There was a team that was kind of struggling to win, big games, and beating the Bengals is not all that impressive. But it seems like everybody's getting involved. Cooper Kupp had a huge game, 220 yards and a touchdown. Jared Goff is tossing the ball around, with 2 touchdowns. So maybe the Rams are getting their mojo back, and they're going to need it because there's so many good teams in the NFC. As I mentioned, the Saints, the Packers, the 49ers, the Vikings. I mean, coming out of the NFC is really going to be hard, for the defending NFC champion Rams. So we'll see how they develop in the second half of the season. They had a so-so first half of the season, but hey, they're still the talented team that went to the Super Bowl last year, so you can't necessarily write them off, especially if they're winning games, at this rate that they're currently winning.
The Rams are on a bye this week. Let's move into number 8 and the Baltimore Ravens.
Big game coming up for the Ravens this week against the defending champion New England Patriots. And the Ravens are coming off a bye, so they've actually had 2 weeks to prepare, for this game. They've had a lot of good rivalry games in the past. I've covered some of them. And with the way the Ravens are playing with Lamar Jackson as that dual threat at quarterback, it's really going to be a test for New England's defense, which has been very opportunistic. So I think it's going to be a matter of, can the Patriots force turnovers? If not, then I think the Ravens have a chance to cover at home and outright win at home. And if the Patriots do force turnovers, which they have, all season, then I think that kind of comes down, to the Patriots winning the road game. But we'll see if they're really deserving of being a top 5 team when they face New England this week.
Let's move into number 9 and the Dallas Cowboys.
Dallas also coming off a bye week, so not much to say about them. They get healthy, but they have been playing better football lately. Very important second half of the season for Dallas, not just for the team, but for head coach Jason Garrett, who is coaching for his job, at this point. He has a very talented team. There's no reason for this team not to make the playoffs, not to win the NFC East division, especially with all the down years that the Eagles are having, the Redskins are having, and also the New York Giants. So it looks like the NFC East is theirs for the taking the second half of the season. It's just up to them to go take it.
The Cowboys have the Monday night game this week. They're 7-point favorites on the road at the Giants. Let's move into number 10 and the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah, a little surprised by the Colts, average performance in a win over the Denver Broncos. I thought they would show out much better in that game, coming home where they played pretty good football, and they just needed some last-second heroics from Jacoby Brissett to get Adam Vinatieri in field goal position. And as Vinatieri normally does, he drilled a 51-yard game-winning field goal as time expired to beat the Broncos. So the Colts won. They improved to 5-2, and they're winning. But I thought they would play much better football against Denver. Maybe I should give Denver a little bit more credit. Denver hasn't been winning games, but it seems like every game they've played and they've been close. They just don't know how to win.
The Colts play the Steelers this week in Pittsburgh. That game's a pick'em. Let's move into number 11 and the Houston Texans.
Yeah, Houston's another team that, you just expect more from. They're a team with a ton of talent. But they barely beat the Oakland Raiders 27-24. They were trailing the entire game. Deshaun Watson kind of helped them pull it out, against a Raiders team that's been, below average. But something to really keep an eye out for them is J.J. Watt out for the season with a torn pectoral muscle. So they lose their best defensive player, their most dynamic defensive player. And really, J.J. Watt has been, in and out the lineup with injuries for the past couple of years at least. A few years, as a matter of fact, with J.J. Watt. So we'll see how the defense reacts, following that. But I think that's a big loss for them on defense. But make no mistake, this is Deshaun Watson's team now. He's the main guy leading the charge. So this is something that they should be able to overcome, where in years past, before Deshaun Watson came along, they lost J.J. Watt. Pretty much their season was over.
The Texans are 2-point favorites on the road at Jacksonville. Let's move into number 12 and the Chiefs.
Yeah, the Chiefs played pretty good football despite having a backup quarterback against the Green Bay Packers. As I mentioned, they lost by a touchdown, to the Packers at home. But it was a competitive game. They actually led the game 17-14 at halftime. They were a home underdog in this game, obviously without their MVP, Patrick Mahomes. So whenever Mahomes comes back, the Chiefs are going to go up the rankings. But for now, right now they're 5-3. They're 1-3 at home. They need to start winning some home games. They usually have a really strong home field advantage. That hasn't been the case this year. But with Patrick Mahomes out, pretty much all things are off the table. You can't really expect the Chiefs to be the Chiefs. So they're outside of my top 10 right now until Mahomes comes back. But once he does, they're probably going to be right back up there as one of the contenders in the AFC.
Let's move into number 13 in the Philadelphia Eagles.
Hey, we outlined this as a potential trap game, the Eagles at the Bills. The Eagles were underdog, 2-point underdog going into Buffalo. I had been saying all along that, I'm not sold on this Bills team. I think they're fugazi. I don't think that they are a legit 5-1 team. They beat up on teams like the Jets. They beat up on teams like the Dolphins. The only legitimate opponent that they had really this season so far was the New England Patriots, and they lost that game. So they faced another team, a veteran team with some leadership in the Philadelphia Eagles. They lost that game, got crushed, as a matter of fact, 31-13 as a home favorite, 2-point favorite. Eagles are one of these teams that, look, when they're clicking, when they have things right, they could beat just about anybody. But they're 4-4. They're very inconsistent. I think a lot of that has to do with Carson Wentz, their quarterback, and also their running game. They showed up with their running game this time. Jordan Howard. They had a plethora of running backs, as a matter of fact, really playing very well for Philadelphia. So if they can stick to that formula and kind of take the ball out of Carson Wentz's hand at least a little bit, I think that really helps the Eagles. And in this game, this is probably their best performance of the season against a Buffalo team that came in with a 5-1 record.
The Eagles are 5-point favorites at home versus the Bears this week. Let's move to number 14 and the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, as I mentioned, not sold on the Bills. Haven't been sold on them all season, even though they had been winning games. This was kind of a game. Let's see if they're for real. Let's see if they could beat a Philadelphia Eagles team that's desperate, a team with some playoff experience, a team with some high expectations, a team with a lot of talent. And they just got crushed. They came in, turned over the ball. Josh Allen, their second-year quarterback, just couldn't hold on to the ball, throwing interceptions, fumbling, all kinds of things. So we'll see how they bounce back. But this is a Bills team that, I just don't see them in the mix, by the end of the season. Yes, they started fast, but I just don't see them really in a strong conversation with teams like the Patriots and some of these other contenders in the AFC, with some of these other good teams by the end of the season.
The Bills are 10-point favorites at home this week versus the Skins. Let's move into number 15 and the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, Detroit pulled out basically a must-win situation this early in the season in a win against the Giants. They were facing a 2-5 team at home, but they pulled it out 31-26. It was a pretty close game. Lions improved to 3-3-1 at home, and the reason why they got to start winning is because their division is so competitive. You got teams like the Vikings that's winning, teams like the Packers that's winning. So at the least, it looks like the Lions are going to finish third in their division, if not fourth. With the Chicago Bears who are kind of nipping at their heels, but yeah. So Detroit has to start winning games. Matthew Stafford, 3 touchdown passes. They're one of those teams that's really hard to guess for spread bettors. It's one of those things where they can jump up and beat anybody, and then they can lose to anybody. So, for example, the Giants, they were, pretty. I think they were touchdown favorite. They ended up not covering that game, but then they'll go play somebody like the Green Bay Packers and they'll cover. I mean, that's just kind of the team that they are. So they're kind of a team to really stay away from right now if you're betting for or against them with the spread.
The Lions are 2-point underdogs at the Raiders this week. Let's move to number 16 and the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah, Carolina didn't show up this week. Their rookie quarterback, Kyle Allen, went to San Francisco in a huge spot, huge game. Try to be the first team to beat the 49ers, and they basically didn't show up. They got crushed 51-13. Their rookie quarterback, Kyle Allen, threw 3 picks against a very good San Francisco defense. But look, the Panthers are 4-3 at this point and played most of the season without Cam Newton. So you got to give them kudos. Allen put them in position to make a run in the second half of the season. Now, let's see what decision they make going forward to either stick with the rookie who's been winning a decent amount of games or go with Cam Newton, who led them to a Super Bowl, once he gets fully healthy. So we'll see how that situation plays out in the next couple of weeks.
The Panthers are 3.5-point favorites at home versus the Titans this week. Let's move into number 17 and the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yeah, Jaguars are kind of in a similar spot, as the Panthers. They have a rookie quarterback in Gardner Minshew that's been winning some games, and they've been playing, pretty decent football going forward. And Gardner Minshew, led the team to a 29-15 victory over the New York Jets. He had 3 touchdown passes, one of his better games. Leonard Fournette, at running back, has run the ball well as well. And their defense has been playing pretty well also. So they're 4-4 at this point. They're in the conversation in the AFC South and in the AFC in general. I don't really know how far Gardner Minshew is going to take them this year, but they're a team that, they can at least beat up on the cupcakes. I mean, that's kind of a showing of a team that's probably in the middle of the pack. If you lose to the good teams and beat up on the cupcakes, that means you're probably in the middle. And right now, the Jaguars are one of those teams that's in the middle.
Let's move into number 18 and the LA Chargers.
Yeah, upset city for the Chargers. They went to Chicago in the Soldier Field and beat the Bears 17-16. Bears had a chance to win it with the late field goal, but they missed a game-winning field goal, potential game-winning field goal as time expired. So the Chargers improved to 3-5. They're not really going anywhere. As I mentioned, they just do not look like the same team they had last year. And the Bears, man, they're taking the Bears down with them. The Bears are now 3-4 in that tough NFC North division. They're 1-3 at home, so they've been losing a lot of their home games as well. So it doesn't really look good for them going into the second half of the season. But with the Chargers, we'll talk about the Bears a little more in a little bit. But with the Chargers, they're just a team that's kind of stuck in the mud. They might win 1, lose 2, that kind of team. So I don't really expect much from them in the second half of the season, other than playing that spoiler role, where with Phillip Rivers you have a chance to beat some teams and jump up and surprise some teams and maybe vying for a playoff spot.
The Bears at number 19.
Yeah, and the Bears, as I mentioned, they look like they're just not going anywhere this year. They just have so many problems, whether it's the kicking game, whether it's the offense, some of the coaching schemes, and Mitch Trubisky at quarterback. I just don't know what's going on with Mitch Trubisky at this point. He was a guy that put up great numbers last year, led the Bears to the playoff and the division title, and now you just can't even seem to throw a single touchdown. I mean, he's struggling. He had 253 yards and an interception. He's not hitting the deep ball, going a lot of side to side, but not really, moving chains or doing anything. So, you kind of wonder, if Mitch Trubisky kind of reached the ceiling and peaked a little too early last year, because he's not following that up with another great season. So keep an eye on Mitch Trubisky, because I think he's kind of bordering some hot seat, conversation in Chicago, especially with the team at 3-4 and desperately in need of a win.
Steelers at number 20.
Yeah, Steelers picked up a win on Monday Night Football against the Miami Dolphins. Nothing to write home about, but look, they won the game. They beat a winless team. They improved to 3-4. So yeah, I mean, the Steelers are a team that they want to win, even though they don't have their quarterback in Ben Roethlisberger, but they're trying to vie for a playoff spot. They're going to need to win a lot more games. They're still under 500 at 3-4. So we'll see how far Mason Rudolph can take them in the second half of the season.
The Raiders at 21.
Yeah, the Ravens are a team that plays pretty competitive football and even pulls off some upsets sometimes. They almost beat the Texans. They lost 24-27, but now they're 3-4. And Derek Carr had 3 touchdown passes. Still a good quarterback, but the team just still doesn't seem to know how to win on a consistent basis. But give some credit to John Gruden. He got his teeth kicked in pretty much all last year. Now he has the Raiders playing some good ball to where they're fighting back. They're either right in it or they're winning games outright. So kudos to the Raiders for hovering around 500 at the halfway point of the season.
The Titans at 22.
Yeah, the Titans are back to 500 after beating the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 27-23. There were some controversial calls in that game that went the Titans' way. But, hey, how about my old friend Ryan Tannehill? I covered Ryan Tannehill for 7 years in Miami, and, he had an up-and-down career. I wrote so many stories about him. But now he's starting with the Tennessee Titans. And he's winning some games. So he put up 27 points against the Buccaneers at home. So give him credit. You picked up a nice win. And look, you got Matt Moore and Ryan Tannehill both playing pretty significant roles for their teams in 2019. I didn't think that would happen. These are 2 quarterbacks that I actually covered during their up and down careers in Miami. And now they're winning games for other teams.
The Browns at 23.
Yeah, how about those Browns coming off a bye week? Look, you can't expect them to win against the New England Patriots, but they did have 2 weeks to prepare for the New England Patriots, and the game plan they came up with was pretty horrendous. They lost 27-13, fell behind 17-0 right off the bat. A lot of turnovers. Nick Chubb fumbled the ball twice. The quarterback Baker Mayfield didn't really do anything in the game. So it looks like the Browns were all hyped. They're now 2-5. Going into the midway point of the season. They do have an easier schedule in the second half of the season, but I think they've lost so many games at this point that I just don't think they'll make up ground considering they're already 3 games above 500. So I do want to adjust on the model their win total to 7. I had a lot higher expectations for the Browns coming in, but that is the case no longer. I am giving them some credit. I think they do win, with their easier schedule. I do think they win some games down the stretch and finish at 7-9.
All right, the Cardinals at 24.
Yeah, the Cardinals are up and down, just up and down, but at least they've won some games. They're 3-4-1. They got crushed by the New Orleans Saints, which most people expected. Drew Brees coming back to a very good team. So they lost the game 31-9. Look, no sweat off the Cardinals back. They're 3-4-1, still in the mix at least a little bit in the NFC, and they're hovering around 500. So you got to give them credit for that, but they do need to start winning some more games as we go down the stretch. Kyler Murray needs to play a little bit better. I know he's a rookie, but he is a rookie number 1 overall pick, and the franchise kind of has their hopes pinned on him. But look, he needs to play more consistent football, and I think if he does that, then the Cardinals will play more consistent football as well.
The Bucs at 25.
Yeah, the Bucs suffered a loss to the Tennessee Titans, and they're just as inconsistent as their quarterback, Jameis Winston, and he just has horrendous turnovers. I've been saying that from the beginning. You just can't trust him. You just cannot trust him to take care of the football. That's just not his thing. Former number 1 overall pick. I think it's time for the Bucs to move on. They're 2-5. They gave one more chance this year under new head coach Bruce Arians, who has worked with some great quarterbacks in the past, like Ben Roethlisberger and Kurt Warner, quarterbacks that have been to Super Bowls, that have won Super Bowls. And Jameis Winston just isn't that guy. He's just not right for their franchise at this point. It's time for them to move on, get a new quarterback in there, and kind of go in a different direction. And once they do that, if they get a consistent quarterback who doesn't turn over the football, at least as much as Jameis Winston, I think they have a chance to turn things around, but it just won't happen this year for them.
Broncos at 26.
The Broncos are playing pretty competitive football. They covered the spread Sunday against the Colts, even though they lost 13-15. It took a last-second field goal by Adam Vinatieri, 51-yarder, to beat them on the road against the Colts, who have been playing some pretty good football. So, but keep an eye out. Joe Flacco is injured this week. He suffered a neck injury in the game against the Colts. So they're going to their third-string quarterback, and Brandon Allen, who was actually claimed off waivers from the Los Angeles Rams. So I don't know if they have really much going for them, but they did take a rookie draft pick in Drew Lock in the second round, who has a lot of promise. It's just a matter of him getting healthy. So once he gets healthy, it might be Drew Lock's time to really show that he can lead the Broncos going forward, because it doesn't look like Joe Flacco is leading them to the promised land anytime soon.
The Giants at 27.
Yeah, the Giants are struggling after a fast start by rookie Daniel Jones that led them to 2 straight victories. They can't seem to pull out any wins. Now, Daniel Jones actually had a good game. He had his best game with 4 touchdown passes in a loss against the Detroit Lions. But it seems like they just can't seem to find ways to win games. So Saquon Barkley is back. He's getting healthy. I don't think he's still 100% watching him run, but I think he's getting pretty close. But they need to give him the football a little bit more. But at least they've proved that the future is bright right now with Daniel Jones at quarterback and Saquon Barkley, if Jones can prove to be, as consistent as he was on Sunday.
The Redskins at 28.
Yeah, the Redskins are the Redskins. I mean, they can end their season pretty much any time now. They're 1-7. Their season's done. They said they weren't going to trade Trent Williams. Now they're saying that they might trade Trent Williams, starting left tackle who hasn't played all season. He probably sees how bad this team is and wants out, at this point. But they just seem like a team that's going nowhere. They're going to have a new head coach this year. They already fired Jay Gruden. Was the first team to fire his head coach this year. But I don't know if a head coaching prospect had a chance to go to maybe 2 or 3 different teams. I don't know why they would take the Redskins. They're a team without a franchise quarterback. The ownership situation doesn't seem to be a great one. The roster doesn't have a lot of talent. They just seem like a team that's a long way from turning things around.
The Falcons at 29.
Yeah, the Falcons continue to disappoint. They lost to the Seattle Seahawks, which was expected. Seahawks are a 6-2 team, but the Falcons at 1-7, man. I don't know if anybody projected this, but now at this point they're even out without Matt Ryan at quarterback. He's out, probably going to be out for a couple of weeks or so. But Matt Schaub came in, did throw for 460 yards, but it's still Matt Schaub. So even when he has a big game, that's not enough for them, to win. So it'll be interesting to see if the Falcons play hard for Dan Quinn going forward. It looks like he's on this hot seat. He could be one of the coaches that's next on the firing line, especially if they don't start winning games quickly. But the Falcons on any given week does have enough talent to pull off an upset. It's just a matter of whether or not they're going to play hard for their head coach going forward.
The Jets at 30.
Man, we're into dumpster fire territory now. We're talking about teams like the Redskins, Falcons, and Jets. Jets fell at 1-6, losing to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Sam Darnold, quarterback that says he sees ghosts out there, struggled, had another struggling game, 3 interceptions, and lost to the Jaguars. I think a lot of the blame has to go to Adam Gase, a coach that I know pretty well, that I covered with Miami. Look, he came in with a reputation as doing quarterbacks well, setting up a system for his quarterbacks, coaching up the quarterbacks. And Sam Darnold doesn't seem to be developing the way that the Jets thought he would develop under Adam Gase. So I think that a lot of that goes on his shoulders. But it doesn't seem like really any facet of the team right now is playing particularly well. So they have an interesting game coming up next week against Miami, where the loser of this game could be vying for arguably the top 1 or 2 picks in next year's NFL draft.
The Jets are 5.5-point favorites on the road at Miami this week. The Bengals at 31.
Yeah, the Bengals went to London, played pretty competitive for at least a half against the Los Angeles Rams. They lost by 2 touchdowns, 24-14. They're 0-8. Speaking of in competition for the number 1 overall pick, the Bengals, could be front runners. I mean, it looks like the Dolphins, have an inside track as well. But between those 2 teams, I think one of those teams would be vying for that top spot. Like I said, we're in dumpster fire territory where there's not much to say other than these teams are very bad. A.J. Green still hasn't come back yet, so I don't know if he will come back at this point. Listen to the team and for what, to come back and get hurt, play for a bad team just for a few games. What's the point of that? That's the Cincinnati Bengals. That's the situation they're in, and they got a lot of growing pains before they turn things around.
And the Dolphins at 32.
Hey, the Dolphins were actually up 14-0 against the Pittsburgh Steelers on Monday Night Football. They showed the national audience that they knew at least played a little bit of football, but then reality kind of set in, and Pittsburgh scored 27 unanswered points to end the game and won 27-14. So Dolphins fall to 0-7. As I mentioned, they're trying to get the number 1 overall pick. They traded away all their talent. They actually traded away probably their most dynamic running back this week in Kenyon Drake. I just don't really know how much talent they have left. They still have Xavier Howard, who's one of the better cornerbacks in the league, but he's been kind of in and out due to injury. But the Dolphins are the Dolphins. I think it'll be a little bit interesting to watch them play the New York Jets next week because Adam Gase is coaching that game, and the former Dolphins head coach, now the New York Jets head coach, also due to the fact that both of those teams are just so bad that it'll be interesting to see who's really worse between those 2 teams. So, but other than that, not really any reasons to watch the Miami Dolphins as we go forward to the second half of the season.
We appreciate your liking, commenting, and subscribing. And go ahead and check out the show notes for everything we referenced in today's show.